Hello and welcome to Future Library. It's another week, it's another pod. For me, it's the third in one day. So the last two that you've heard, the last 2 weeks, we recorded kind of almost immediately before this one. So I'm kind of podded out, but I'm joined by a guest today who I'm hoping will lift me from that pod exhaustion to help me deliver the kind of show you know and love and expect to hear. We're joined by Billy Samson. He plays in the Paraffins. How you doing, Billy?
I'm all right. How you doing, Alex?
I'm very good. Thank you for joining me at this late hour, or early hour, depending on how the listeners are listening. Thank you for joining me at any hour of the day, as far as the listeners are concerned.
All bases.
Absolutely. So you are. Well, I know a bit about you, which is what I say about most episodes. I say I know a bit about the person, but the listeners might not. So tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a member of the Paraffins. Currently, the only member, because it's mostly only me. But I used to pretend we were a collective of sorts. But sheer arrogance has just made me into a solo artist for the time being. But I'm not playing live because I'm promoting depressing, moody music right now rather than the lively stuff I used to do.
Yes, because the last time I saw you, I was playing with you in Glasgow, and you were playing quite upbeat, kind of jump around stuff with a little blue guitar, was it?
Yeah, that was it. I still use the blue guitar.
Little blue guitar, and I have to admit, and I'm going to put my hands up at this point, you have sent me your new album, and I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. But I have listened to the bit that was on the video with the creepy kind of Prisoner Cell Block H thing. And I did find myself thinking, this is very different to what you were doing before. So...
Well, that song isn't really a representative song. I mean, Peace. It's... That's like the weird link on this album. I mean, quite a lot of it is like old school Paraffins, but
well,
just
I totally should have listened to it.
Filter.
Yeah, I've completely screwed the pooch here by not listening. So the new album is kind of like old Paraffins, from what I remember from just being told that a second ago. But you're saying it's a bit more of a
completely different.
You're saying it's got a bit more of a downer edge to it.
The Paraffins
it's
on
kind of
alcohol instead of ecstasy.
Paraffins on alcohol instead of ecstasy. Nice one, Kat.
That'd be a good name for an album.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm hardly an alcohol at all these days. It doesn't work for me like it used to.
But what would happen if you put paraffin on top of alcohol? Would it float or would it disperse?
I think it would float because it's basically wax.
Possibly, yeah. So tell us about what happened with the new album then, because you've done a lot, haven't you? Because you went and played some shows in the US as well.
Yes, that was towards the end of last year, and I think I did the last proper Paraffins, as people used to know it, live gig in bloody Bakersfield, which wasn't a good night, and I kind of felt that was the end of that strain of the Paraffins.
Was it like a chapter ended?
Pretty much. It's part of it's recorded on the live album I did towards the end of last year, which was a free download, a kind of existence-justifying exercise.
So, well, before we get to the new album then, tell me how did this US tour come about?
Oh, well, it was somebody that I was kind of friendly with. I went over to see and ended up playing a few gigs there. It's kind of a bit controversial, but I'm not going to go into too much depth. But we played a couple of gigs, one in Los Angeles at this kind of film centre, which was interesting. And we were supposed to do a couple more, but they get cancelled for different reasons, and the last one was in Bakersfield, which is a town in America mostly known for the Bakersfield sound of country music. Merle Haggard once held up a diner there at gunpoint, and I went to the same diner, and it is literally behind a Blues Brothers-esque fence, you know, the kind of chicken wire thing. Mm-hmm. And the waitress had to come out and let you in, and stuff like that.
And did you hold it up while you were there?
Oh no, I don't think immigrants doing that is looked upon very kindly at all.
But is it
different when it's a local good old?
I was going to say, yeah, absolutely. If it's a local, they're perfectly happy with it. But if it's a visitor, they're not so keen.
I think that's the general etiquette. That's what I picked up anyway.
Yeah. So I mean, I have to ask: did you have the requisite visa to play the shows?
Well, I had the visa, the £30 sign. But
Yeah, that's tough.
Is that the
Yeah,
one? Just a normal you can visit
You're allowed
the
to
US?
visit, yes.
yeah, the visitor's visa, that's the one. I didn't have the playing a show visa.
You didn't have a work visa, so I take it you didn't put any of these shows on your website before you went over there.
Well, I put them on Facebook because that's a bit of a lawless hellhole anyway. So it doesn't matter.
Because this has happened. This has happened that people have turned up at customs in the US and have had, they've gone in and customs have said, "Oh, why are you here?" "Oh, we're visiting friends." And they say, "Oh, well, can you come off and sit in this room, please?" And they'll pull up like what was back then the MySpace page of the band and say, "Well, what are all these dates we've got listed here? This is you, isn't it? And you're playing this." So I think there is a small risk of that happening, but maybe Facebook is too much of a, events come and go, don't they? And there's no guarantee that even if 1,000 people say they're going to go to your event on Facebook, that anybody will turn up. It's like you say, it's a lawless hellhole, and anything goes. It's the Wild West of the internet, if we're going to stretch the metaphor to almost breaking point. And maybe that's why you got away with it.
Quite possibly. Well, I just went over and did them. I didn't
You didn't put too much thought into it, you just went.
No, it's the other side of the coin. I remember, do you know the hidden cameras?
Yes.
I remember they played, they didn't play, as it turned out, in stereo in Glasgow about 3 years ago. And there was a lot of folk there to see them. And at the last minute, they suddenly weren't allowed to take the stage because they didn't have the correct authorisation.
It's crazy. I know that there was a band from... where were they from? They were from Latvia years ago, and there was a Newcastle band called Ball Boy, who was... They were heavily involved in the Latvian music scene at the time. They kind of were really promoting
Ball
it.
Boy?
Yeah. Not Ball Boy, Bowling Boy. Not
Bowling Boy, alright.
Bowling Boy, Ball Boy, Boiling Boy. It's all the same. It's got a B at the start and a boy at the end, and just a few letters different in the middle. Bowling Boy from Newcastle brought over this band from Latvia called Circa, and I think they played 2 gigs before they were then hauled off by immigration and told to leave because they didn't have the correct visas. Which I think is a bit shit. I think, why should you have to have a visa to perform for free in another country? It's not like you're taking work away from the locals. Oh, son, I don't want you playing over here because, awkward Latvian music is actually covered in our town by some band over there made up of locals. That doesn't happen.
I like the sudden West Country accent.
Well,
I dipped into the...
Yeah, I imagined that it would be some kind of place like Bristol or something where this would happen, or some kind of small place called Newton Pobbleford or something. Where, a tiny pub where they turn up at the pub called the Old Cock or something, where only 4 people ever drink at it, and they turn up, start setting up, and they go, "Oh, where are you from then?" I don't know why I turned into a weird American accent there. "Oh, where are you from then?" And they go, "Oh,
Bristol, Kentucky, probably."
Yeah. They'd be like, "Oh, we are from Latvia. We are a band from Latvia."
Got to say that I played a very good gig in Bristol. It was the one time I've been there, and it was... I don't know, I felt very relaxed in that place for some reason. It was...
Bristol, the last podcast actually was with an artist from Bristol, and I think Bristol is kind of maybe sympathetic to the arts.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely the impression I got.
Yeah. It could have just been the lack of Neds as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is a lack of Neds, though there are a lot of beggars in Bristol. I'm not meaning to besmirch the name of Bristol but it is famous for a bit of a problem with street-dwelling folk. People go there for the bright lights of the art community, and they fail to make it and end up on the street trying to flog wannabe Banksy pictures to passers-by.
I don't know, I tend to think with Bristol that a lot of what could be construed as Ned behaviour isn't seen as that harmful. Like, when I played there, it was from the band The Bumblebees, who were an excellent band, but they're not around anymore. Ellis. It's like his mum came to collect us and his pals after the gig, and she just drove down, and we were all five sheets to the wind, and I think she'd probably had a couple as well. And we all just piled into the car, like three guys in the passenger seat, driving home, and nobody gave a shit or a fuck or whatever. Whereas in Glasgow, you would be stopped instantly, but it wasn't done in an aggressive or needy way. It's just the kind of thing, it would have been construed as being aggressive if it had happened north of the border, or even in London, for example.
Well, there's this interesting thing that's actually happening in Glasgow, isn't there? That aren't they trying to stop music being played in parks by musical instruments?
It's not quite as simple as just that. It's to do with the whole gentrification of Glasgow. I mean, like, a certain popular newspaper, which I do buy myself now and again, had a campaign to shut down Paddy's Market, which worked. And now they're wanting the bars completely shut. And they're very into the gentrification of the merchant city being turned into wine bars exclusively that no normal person would ever go to. So this is just the latest thing. I mean, it's ideological. It's not simply about music.
So wanting to make it feel safe for the upper middle classes who have moved in and want everything to be like a shiny European city of culture type place, whereas Glasgow's got a little bit more grime under its fingernails.
Pretty much, but I don't think it's just Glasgow's sense of grime. I mean, you look at, I don't know, if you know the Night and Day in Manchester, there's, I think somebody moved above that or next to it, and they're wanting them to close because there's one person has complained to the council.
The same thing's happened in Birmingham. There's been several venues down in Digbeth which the council is pushing as the cultural quarter. Venues down there that have been there for a very long time and have gigs going on for years and years and years. I mean, not the same gig, but many gigs over a long period of time. They build flats there because they go, come and live in the cultural quarter. There's the culture. Come and live with the culture. And then what happens is people come in and they want to live with the culture, and then what happens is they don't like the noise the culture makes, so they complain to the council, and suddenly there's noise limiters put in, and then they complain again. Suddenly the council are threatening to close places that have been putting on stuff without any complaints for like 40 years. I think it's a common problem. You get wankers being wankers who think that they can have everything. They can have their quiet nights in and still living in the cultural quarter, and then complain about the noise. It's a bit like Bryan Adams buying the pub across the road from him in London and then shutting it to get rid of the noise.
Did he do that?
Yes, he did, apparently. That's the story I heard.
I thought he was alright, because he was chairman of a few causes, but didn't shout too loudly about it. But now I've changed my mind. Here's a prick.
Yeah, well, that's the story I've heard. I mean, it may not be true, but I have heard that story from more than one source. That the pub across the road was having a little bit of a hard time, but it was still open, and the locals were very pleased that when they heard that Bryan Adams was going to buy it, because they thought, oh, local Canadian rock star's going to buy it. That'll keep us going. And then he shut it because of the noise, which is a.
What? And he brought out an album called Waking Up the Neighbourhood.
Yeah. Maybe that was his complaint about the pub. Maybe that's how he felt. Maybe he felt that they were waking up the neighbourhood.
Shouting into a megaphone on the cover, so his defence is pretty weak.
But
unless he was being parodic, I don't know.
Maybe he was shouting at the pub, keep the fucking noise down. Because we all know that Bryan Adams walked around with a guitar slung around his neck at all times.
All the time, even in Sherwood Forest.
Even in Sherwood Forest.
Years ago.
On the toilet, in the bath, having a shower, when he's swimming at the beach, mountain climbing, doing his shopping, driving. On a plane, he has to actually pay for another seat. Anything you can think of that Bryan Adams does. What's that?
During coitus.
During coitus, yeah, which is something that Meatloaf wouldn't do. So doing all these different things, Bryan Adams keeps his guitar strapped on. So really, that photograph was maybe taken by a local on their camera phone device of him shouting at the pub, "Keep the noise down, or I'll buy you and shut you." Which maybe they thought, oh look, he's striking a rock pose. I'll take a photograph of that and sell it to him for his album cover.
Oh, did they have camera phones in 1991? This is it's controversial.
the people of London knew all about camera phones in 1991.
Ah, right.
Just because we were living in places that were behind the times, Billy. They knew all about iPhones and iPads in 1991 back in London.
Just because you live in the provinces.
Yeah, just because we lived in the provinces where we didn't get that kind of thing, but London knew all about it. You know, it's like, you know, they knew about it. The royal family.
Oh, the whole London Calling thing is a whole song about that.
What's that? London Calling? Yeah, London Calling on our camera phone devices is the line that you never hear because they never play it right through to the end.
God, 1979, that's...
Yeah. I live with my iRiver. You know, obviously iPod hadn't come along at that point, but, you know, that's the line. People think it says, I live by the river, but he's like, I live with my iRiver. Which, for listeners who are unaware, was one of the earlier MP3 playing devices. I don't know why I'm saying devices a lot, but I am.
Devices.
Yeah. Devices. It sounds weird the more you say it.
Left to your own devices, you probably would.
I probably would. I would. But again, that's another 90s reference. Or even 80s reference, would that be?
That's 80s, but...
80s, Pet Shop Boys.
The devices they were talking about were probably the original iPhones and stuff that actual people weren't allowed to touch.
Because they were in London at the time, so they had access. They'd come down from the north and were surprised by
exactly.
iPhones.
That's what tempted them.
Yeah, and left to your own devices, you probably would. And what the would they're talking about is use a swipe gesture to send an email.
Yep.
Yep, that's what they were going for. So anyway, let's talk about the new album. Now we've worked out exactly what was going on with the past. So, new album. It's darker.
That's moody and it's
moody,
cinematic, and it's mostly recorded on an 8-track cassette, and it's got sampling in it from a 80s Roland sampler, and it's hardly got any real singing on it. There's only about 2 or 3 songs you could say have got real lead vocals. The rest of it's background mutterings and sighings.
Because let's see, you've got the song titles are quite kind of. There's a certain sense of, I don't know. It's almost a kind of a. Yeah, it's not kind of a cheery titles. I mean, Afraid of the Everyday.
It's a bit ennui.
Shitting MP3s. Band of Snow, Deep Space. There's a sense of despair. Is there something you're wanting to tell the world that's led to this, or is it just a midlife crisis?
No, it's not a midlife crisis yet. Honest, I'm still shy of being 40.
Is it a cry for help in another way?
Not a vocal cry for help, or
is it a cry for help from the soul?
Probably an audio cry for help.
And what's the help that you seek?
More cunts buying my album. Perpetual crisis that faces us all.
And do you think calling the album Subhuman is going to help with that?
Probably not.
The more you think about it, do you think you maybe should have gone with Waking Up the Neighbourhood as the title?
Yes, it's...
Maybe a picture of you on the front.
I'm trying to think. I took a load of photos that were supposed to be the cover, and that's what I eventually decided on. I'm sure there's one of me shouting into a megaphone or something somewhere.
There's some people at a gig with somebody who's got a camera phone device in one of the photos.
The person with the device is me.
There you go.
That was the second to last gig that I actually did. And it was my friend Jude that took that picture. She had her camera and I took a picture of her. And there was people behind and I just blacked out their eyes.
I saw, yeah. And it's... So there's... So, you're saying that you're not playing live at the moment. Is that because this material's darker, or is it just because you don't want to?
I just think it would be hard to present, and I'm kind of too lazy to work out how to do it. It took me a while to work out how to present the old Paraffins material. Like, in a way that wouldn't be come across as someone playing to backing tracks, which it largely was, but that would give me enough way to improvise around it, which it did in the end. But this stuff, I think I could only play it as backing tracks, and I wouldn't be very energetic.
Maybe you should just go on with an MP3 player and have like a plinth. Oh, this is what you should do. Right, okay, I've sorted out your problems here, Billy.
Hit me.
get the audience in like those old Memorex adverts to put blindfolds on. Then get a couple of very kind of serious-looking kind of technician types to very formally and almost religiously bring an MP3 player on stage, plug it in, and press play on the playlist, and then just stand either side of the plinth while it plays. And you can just sit backstage drinking and enjoying the money you've made from the show. And then just come out at the end and go, everybody, thank you. You can now remove your eye baffles, and they'll take off their eye baffles, and you'll be standing there with maybe an instrument and what looks like a box of technical things that maybe could change the sounds from that instrument. And you go, thank you. All this was created with these things, and then accept the adulation and walk off.
I think I might just do that.
It's worth doing it, or play it and just jump around a lot in front of it.
Oh, there's nothing to jump around to.
But that's why you jump around.
But you jump around because you feel the rhythm. There is not a lot of rhythm to feel in this. I would have
Isn't
to.
that a bit like my plan to sit there and just play video games on stage?
You could do that, yeah. You could. That's the other thing you could do. You could just sit with your laptop, put the lid up so it's facing the audience, press play on iTunes, and then just sit and actually reply to emails for the whole set.
That's what people think you do.
Just sit on Facebook for the whole set.
Live tweet your entire set.
Live tweet the set. Tell people that they need to follow your Twitter feed during the set, and you will live tweet information about the songs while you're playing them.
But you'd have to make the tweeting a real feature of it. Like,
yeah. Oh, that's it.
No, I think it should just be him repeating, "I'm taking a very boring shit."
Wow.
Because that's what Twitter is. Look at my dinner, I'm taking a boring shit.
No, I'm genuinely excited about this idea now.
You're such a weirdo.
I used to go nuts on Twitter, but I never ever bored people about my toilet exploits. That was...
Wasn't that your first tweet, Alan?
My first tweet was taking a boring shit. Because there was a blog years ago called Speak Your Brains, which was taking the piss out of, have your say type things on websites, and it was republishing the most lunatic of them. And I think the reason the guy stopped doing it was because eventually he was just overwhelmed by a sea of every single comment on the Daily Mail website being worthy of being on the site. And by the time you've got to the point where every comment's like that, you may as well stop picking individual ones and just let the ocean of shit wash you away. But he said that Twitter was just for boring arseholes who just tweeted stuff like taking a boring shit. And that stuck with me, the whole taking a boring shit thing. And I could have made that when I eventually joined Twitter, because I really fought against Twitter for a long time, which you would find it hard to believe with my 40,000 odd tweets that I've done since. But I fought against it, and my very first tweet was taking a boring shit as a result. And that was my only tweet for quite some time. But this is the idea. So you play the show. You tell people as part of the show they have to follow a certain hashtag or to follow you on Twitter. And you sit with your phone behind your computer and you live tweet the whole show. Just telling people.
Just tweet from
or tweet from your computer. Yeah, there you go. That's even better. Tweet from your computer. Just sit tweeting from your computer about each track. And then you tweet at the end of the track, you may now applaud.
I quite like the snobbery of you may now applaud.
Yeah. I actually...
A few kind of tweets with just 3 dots in a row.
Yeah.
To keep them waiting, keep them on for a bit.
Yeah. Well, like when you go back to do an encore, just go backstage and just tweet out, wait for it. Wait for it. Then a couple of ellipses, then wait for it. And then... encore begins, and then you could come back out, press play another song, tweet that, and then I'm actually quite excited about this idea. I think it's a brilliant idea. You can have it for free.
Encores as a literal repeat of what you've heard before.
Yeah. Do the whole set.
Just do the whole set again.
Do the whole set exactly the same way with exactly the same tweets as your encore.
Did you ever see? It was New Order playing at the Brixton Academy in 1987. Came out as a video and it's been on the telly and everything. Directed by Mike Mansfield, that did the Adamant videos and stuff.
Right.
Did you ever see that one?
I haven't. No, what happened?
No, you buy it as a video, and at the end it's got Encore Temptation separately. And you assume that they came back on and did that, but when you watch the actual video, the full thing plays, and then you get that actual rewind technique that they used to love in the 80s, and it just goes and plays Temptation again from earlier in the set. It's the kind of thing that we were blinded to at that time. So I think I saw that first about 1989 or something, and I thought, oh wow, brrr, backwards, and here we see it again, before I was old enough to go to actual gigs. And then I thought, no, that is slightly interfering with the passage of time as you would experience it at the show.
Yeah, it has messed with causality and temporal reality, but it's making use of a little kind of weird code you could stick on videotapes.
Yep.
And make them go back and forth at will, like some kind of VHS magic.
Quite exciting, this VHS magic.
What was that, Kat?
It's quite exciting, this VHS magic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was exciting VHS magic back in the day. Yeah, that's what you need. So yeah, I think that's what you should do. Or maybe you should put the whole gig on videotape and just play it on a screen, like at school where they used to wheel the TV in for lessons, and they'd get the video player out and they'd play you something they'd recorded off the telly the night before.
Yeah, usually with a voiceover by Chris Tarrant.
Yeah.
Or he was a scary person.
You could find the beginning. I'm sure they've got the schools programs countdowns on YouTube somewhere. I'm going to look. I want to know now.
They've got everything up there. It's everything apart from the Jackie Started Smoking advert from the 80s in Scotland, but they've got everything else.
They've not got that. Oh man.
Oh.
Okay, schools programs. They've got schools programs from the 1970s. Countdown. Let's have a look. Yes, they have. School TV countdown. There you go. 28 seconds of it. Of independent television for schools and colleges, which is exactly what so many of us sat there and watched.
Is that with that Scalextrics-esque font?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It gives you the last kind of 30 seconds or whatever of it. So I'm going to send you the link to that on Facebook, and I hope to hear that you will have used that, because that's an amazing thing. And again, this is something that's fascinating for the listeners, because they can understand that this is something that's really happening as the show goes on.
Bear in mind, this will be glitchy as I check out another screen while speaking to you.
He's going to go on to be wildly successful because of this.
Yeah, it's going to be famous. It's going to be like,
I gave him that.
I'll be sat there at home tweeting. What a bastard! He took my tweeting idea and the school's programmes idea that I gave him and said he could use, and has made millions from it. And I'll be live tweeting through your gigs my annoyance. And that's how it'll work. Yeah, so independent school television for schools and colleges with the weird little pips going around the edge, and
this is quite surprisingly high res.
It does make me feel a little bit suspicious, because I don't think it said Retrogent Presents at the bottom either before.
Let's get Maths for You. Only Prince spoke like that in those days. Text message.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, unless you were in London, where it was, actual text message.
Oh, it was implanted directly into your brains down there.
The people of London knew about text messages back then.
Yes.
You could
School children were wired up with headsets that...
Yeah, man. All when
right into the cerebral cortex.
They all knew about Google Glass back then in that there London.
They must have done. Even I don't know what Google Glass is, so...
Yeah, they did, so, they knew a long time, so I think you should do it. I think that's the way. An old television set, old VHS video player, put your entire set on video, just wheel it on stage and sit it there. And I think the people of Glasgow would go apeshit bananas for that. I think they'll go down well in the West End.
Oh, it would definitely go down well in the West End. It fits just in with twee culture enough for it to work.
Yeah, you see, there you go. You could get a gig with a side project of Belle and Sebastian, and because I'm sure there must be lots of those, and you could do that. I would actually go and see a gig that was like that.
Well, the only two gigs I've done this year have had Stevie Jackson playing at them, so I think my future is to be a kind of minor twee celebrity.
There you go. So your choices are TV video presentation of the show, and present it as if it's in fact, come on stage before it, tell everybody to be quiet and sit down, and say that you've got a special treat for them today, unlike the normal lesson. You're going
that's what gigs in Glasgow are like anyway. This one, complete anarchy.
Yeah.
I'm actually the next album of music I think I'm going to do is going to be very poppy. I would like to do something poppy again. It's just hard to get my head back into that kind of mindset.
Maybe it's would you almost go back kind of synth pop to kind of the days of the Electroloves, that kind of thing?
I probably would, because I've always enjoyed making that kind of music.
Well,
so
I mean,
it just depends what your head is at the time.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Kay's been a mum for a while now. Maybe her kids are getting a little bit older. Maybe they can look after themselves of an evening. Maybe get the old band back together.
I don't know.
Or get a new band back together. I don't know how you get a new band back together. But
I think a new band back together, that's retro-futuristic enough.
Yeah, that's what you should do. You could tell people in interviews that you were getting the new band back together. And that this is... In fact, there you go. There's another freebie for you. You tell them that you're getting the new band back together, that the new band is reforming with completely new members, a new name and new songs, and talk about it as if it's a comeback, and just make it that it isn't. It's a completely new project.
Yeah, nostalgia for an age yet to come.
Exactly.
Has been done.
That's your first album.
Yeah, there you go. First album. Call it Greatest Hits, the first album.
Too many folk have done that.
Well, but they've done it meaning that it was actually the greatest hits. But if you call your first album Greatest Hits, or All the Best,
I actually recorded an album for somebody 3 years ago that was called Greatest Hits, and it was their first album.
Oh, damn it! So that's been done. Shit. Okay.
Exactly.
No, I think you should just use the earlier sentences. The
nostalgia for the future.
Like that.
Retro nostalgia, whatever it was.
Yeah. Nostalgia for the future.
That's the Buzzcocks. I've only talked in sentences I've stolen from other people.
You see, there's so many things you can do, you see. You've no excuse not to play shows.
I don't really have the drive to do it just now. I always used to. This is a funny kind of fallow period for me.
I do understand that feeling, though, where part of me wants to play gigs, but on the other hand, I kind of hate doing it. Mm-hmm. And I kind of see other people playing shows, and I kind of go, I want to play a show! And then I get to the show, and I'm like, I hate this! This is boring and rubbish, I'd much rather be at home. And then
I always had that sentiment when I was playing gigs, and I was really up for it. I would hate it when I first get into the room, and then I would love it halfway through, or vice versa.
Yeah.
But it's just, at the moment, I feel kind of... Well, if I go and see another band, I don't necessarily feel like I should be doing that, if you know what I mean. It's purely a social occasion now. So I don't get that kind of slight undercurrent of, I should be up there doing that anymore, which I worry about, to be honest.
What about you could take the playing from home via web broadcasts route? Make YouTube videos of your shows and upload those, perhaps.
I think just stealing a Cell Block H clip and playing it backwards is my equivalent of that. I don't know if I could really perform just to a camera.
Well, maybe you should...
Something that is a video.
Maybe you should play conceptual gigs where you just define a thing as your gig that day. Mm-hmm. So you look to see who's playing in Glasgow that night, and you just announce on the Paraffins website that show by the Foo Fighters is your conceptual gig. That is a Paraffins gig tonight, regardless of what the Foo Fighters think. And that hopefully it'll be a successful night, and you wish yourself well playing the show. And do that. That could work.
It must be very strange being you.
You think it must be very strange being me, Kat? I don't know. I don't have anything to compare it against. So
I think I would just announce that I've changed my name to Frightened Rabbit in order to wear the same band altogether and just wait for the shock.
You could every night you could change your name to a different band.
Possibly.
A different popular band. I'm not saying that the Paraffins aren't popular.
We're not popular. We've got 300 and something Facebook likes.
That's 200 more than I've got, though.
But you've got several bands.
I have, but most of the same people like them.
The same 5 people.
Most of them are the same 5 people, and most of them are my separate backup accounts.
Oh well, we play to a small but select audience, I suppose.
But I have to say, I did notice, and this will be a throwback to people who are listening to the podcast, to a podcast from, it'll be 4 weeks ago now, but I did notice that Billy liked the Paraffins. Not the Paraffins, he would like the Paraffins because he's in the Paraffins. He liked the Solvents. Because I was talking to Jared from the Solvents 4 weeks ago, definitely not last night, 4 or 5 weeks ago, and he was almost just under 1,000 likes on Facebook. And I said, come on, we need to get this up to whatever. And I said, I'll invite a few people. And I actually talked about inviting people during the show. And it's weird because it's almost as if you only got the invitation last night, Billy. But I definitely sent it 5 weeks ago when I recorded the podcast.
Only got it last night.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it, that? Because it's almost as if I recorded the show last night. But as we all know, I didn't, because I certainly wouldn't do such a thing. But yeah, on the show, you can hear me live inviting you to like them. So yeah, you could have, there you go.
Well, you'll have to work that into strategy when you're actually broadcasting these programmes.
I think
a chronological vibe.
I might just retcon it all and just say that didn't happen. And
you were in the shower all along.
Yeah, I was in the shower all along, and really it didn't happen. And a Vulcan, Romulan came through space and changed time, and now Kirk is Chris Pine instead of William Shatner.
There's retconning and there's interfering with various canons. That's not always acceptable.
So, do you think the Star Trek change is an unacceptable change?
I'm not a Trekkie. I don't know what the Star Trek change is.
Oh, they changed.
Unless it's a sexual thing.
They changed the entire original Star Trek by having somebody come through time and alter the timeline.
Right.
And so all the new Star Trek films are meant to be the original Star Trek, but with a different. It's meant to be existing still within the original Star Trek universe, but in an alternate timeline. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
It's how you reboot.
What's that, Kat?
How you reboot.
It's how you reboot something. You know, you don't just switch it on and off again. You actually do that. So, but yeah. So I think we should start to look at drawing things to a close because they've taken a very surreal and slightly disturbing turn. So, where can people go to hear this upbeat new album of yours?
Bandcamp, I suppose, is the best place to hear it.
And would they?
The paraffins.bandcamp.com, as it sounds.
Excellent. And they can hear, I think your other records are up there as well, aren't they?
Yep, the 2 albums are up there. The Snout to the Grindstone, the kind of arty stroke poppy one, and Armed Response, the live in various places, horribly recorded one, which is free, and the new one, Subhuman, which costs money, of course.
Which is very good, because by the time you're hearing this, listeners, I will have listened to it. And I'll legitimately be able to say it is a very good album. Yeah.
Or you might not.
No, I will. I know it. I've heard it. It's a good album.
You said you'd only heard one track earlier on.
Yeah, but that was back in January. This is now, end of February when it's out. And I have now listened to it, and it's a very good record.
It was actually released in November, but we've kicked the space-time continuum to fuck tonight, so it doesn't matter at all.
And the thing is, it doesn't matter at all with this kind of release. You can be interviewing about it 4 years from now, because you've not got a box of them under the bed.
Quite. I won't bury them under the bed, because for this one it's just totally on the internet.
There you go, exactly.
I might make a few hand-type ones if I was doing gigs, but I'm not, so...
But you see, that's the thing for young bands. They need to realise that the joy of releasing things online is you don't have a garage full of MP3s.
Exactly.
Nobody wanted to buy.
You have one MP3 that sits on your computer that you then upload, and you let the internet deal with the rest of it.
But young folk are just into cassettes nowadays.
Oh, the hipsters, yeah.
I don't remember how awkward they actually were to use, even though it was only 5 years ago.
Yeah, they are a pain. They really are.
I thought about bringing this album out in cassette, because I thought if I'm not doing any gigs, I'll at least sell some that way, but nah, fuck it. I recorded it on cassette, that's all you need to know.
Yeah, I think that's good enough.
CDs are okay.
Yeah, you could do it. Well, it's about time that CDs had a resurgence of retro interest, maybe.
I suppose, but they don't have enough artefacting about them that's charming.
I think that's right.
Work.
Nobody ever actually really liked them, did they?
Well, I like them in a lot of ways because it's the closest you'll get to hear how a band wants you to hear them. I mean, old vinyl records, they had to have so many test pressings and alterations before they sounded good, and folks still complained. In cassettes, they would phase and distort on different machines, and it wasn't the kind of artefacting that you like. I mean, it's fair enough doing that and then bringing out the finished thing as a digital file with your own artefacting built in. But
if it's an accident of your player... I mean, I remember having a copy of Doolittle by the Pixies, where after a time you could start hearing the other side of the tape whilst it was
that's
playing.
weird. I had a copy of that as well, and I tried to put that onto CD about 15 years ago, when people still did that rather than going out and buying the CD. When CD recordables were novel. And it sounds fucking terrible on cassette compared to how it would sound on CD.
Yeah.
It phases and symbols disappear and all sorts.
It wasn't a well duplicated album.
No.
But then, so what's up next? So, are there going to be any shows, Billy?
Probably not. But I'll probably do another video for one of the songs off the album.
Well, that's the thing to look for then. So, listeners, there's not going to be any shows, but keep an eye on YouTube and go to the paraffins.bandcamp.com and Facebook page, Paraffins.
That's just facebook.com/the Paraffins, all one word.
And that's where you'll find out about things. So before we finish, is there anything you would like to say to the listening throngs?
Not a lot.
Well, all that's left to say then is a future library. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, and thanks for having us.
Thank you very much, Billy. Thank you for downloading this episode of Future Library. Future Library is brought to you by petpiranha.com and is hosted by myself, Alex Botton. The podcast is free, but if you do want to show your appreciation, feel free to go along to alexbotton.co.uk and click through to music, where you'll be able to find things that you can buy, or go to asmallglassghost.co.uk where you can buy my latest music. Episodes come out when I feel like it, mostly weekly. But that's it, so thank you for listening.